With a 20-year reputation for clean business, Matt Glynn at Code Property Group is the first choice for real estate on the Sunshine Coast and surrounding areas. I've known Matt for a very long time from a personal level and professional level, and he is an excellent real estate agent. He's professional, he holds a high level of integrity, he presents incredibly well, and has a huge amount of knowledge when it comes to the real estate industry. So if you are in the market to buy, sell, or simply get a valuation and find out more about your current property, then give Matt a call on 0404 315 066 or matt.glynn, GLYNN at codepg.com. You won't be disappointed. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paul's Body Engineering Podcast. I'm back from India after a stellar show, a very successful stint over there in a new city. Back on the land of the living once again. Still suffering from a little bit of jet lag, and I guess, once you start to adapt to the Indian lifestyle and their food in particular, your stomach sort of gets used to that, and then when you return, you've got to adapt once again. So it's a very interesting experience, given the significant differences in cultures, foods, availability of food. Like, it was really interesting, just as a bit of a side note, where we went, where the show was in Surat, which is over on the western side, sort of northwest India. The majority of places that you ate at, whether it be in the hotel or around the neighbouring areas, were vegetarian. So protein was a really hard thing to source. And this is a good tip for anyone who goes travelling. You can't always rely on the local cuisine to be efficient in terms of your needs. And this sort of caught us off guard a little bit. Like, we take our protein powder with us, and we always do. But previous trips have shown that we can still source, chicken at most restaurants and most cafes, whereas this time around it was really challenging. So it's a really good lesson for anyone who travels to, say, lesser known countries or not necessarily westernized countries, to just do a little bit of research before you go and identify if there are limitations in food and what they may be, so that you can be prepared for that. But today I wanted to run a solo podcast once again, and this one is it's one that I guess is something that a lot of people really struggle with, and that is, it's okay to be boring. Now, I'm not talking about your personality or lack thereof. It's purely around your efficient week, the way you can be as efficient as you can and maximize your week to benefit you. And often, because we live in such a chaotic world where it's go, 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 changes are made all the time, decisions need to be made all the time. We've got so many things coming and going that with our own health and fitness, there's an expectation that we need to make multiple changes, when the truth of the matter is we don't. And, we often utilize the term consistency, where we need to be, consistent as often as we can for as long as we can to achieve the goals that we want. Well, that can often be boring. That can often be a result of just doing the same thing over and over and over again. But unfortunately, as a society, we've developed this desire to constantly need to change things up and look for a quicker result. We're very impatient, and I personally blame social media for that, because we're always looking for that immediate gratification, that immediate like, that immediate fix, and we're not prepared to just do the same thing over and over again. And the perfect examples of this are things like meal plans. I get it often, and I mean often, where I'll get a new client, sign up, and you give them the option. If they don't have the nutritional literacy in relation to flexible dieting, then meal plans are definitely a good option to get them started. But after a couple of weeks, they ask for a change, and I get that change is good in terms of a bit of variety, mixes it up, keeps you more compliant. But at the same time, boring is also good, because if you are sticking to the same thing day in, day out, and being really mindful of that and learning without too much change, you're going to have success. You're going to have success along the way. You're going to learn about food. You're going to, and in this particular instance, you're going to learn about food. You're going to learn about the ins and outs of the plan. You're going to learn what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and it becomes easy to prepare for. It becomes easy to structure. It becomes easy to plan, and it makes your week really, really efficient. And like I said at the start, boring is okay. This may seem boring, and I get that comment. Like people go, look, I'm getting a bit bored of the meal plan. That's okay. That's okay. It's very much a fine line. Like if I do get that request, I'll talk them through it and I'll say, look, this is the approach and this is why we're doing what we're doing, and I would prefer you to stick to it. But at the same time, you've got to be very much mindful of the individual, and if they're going to waver from the meal plan, or you believe that that is a potential opportunity that's going to occur, then you've obviously got to deal with that. But in the grand scheme of things, boring is okay. It's the same thing if you're tracking your food. Flexible dieting and just following a macro count. Again, people when they check in often have an expectation that a change needs to occur. Oh, I haven't dropped weight this week, so should we be dropping my calories? Well, no. Let's look at all the other bits and pieces that you potentially haven't done or have done that could still improve, rather than immediately going to your calories. And look, yes, again, eating the same amount of calories every single week can be boring, but that's okay. Boring is good. Boring means you're going to be consistent. The two actually line up and correlate really well together, because at the end of the day, consistency is us doing the same thing over and over again. Doesn't necessarily mean that one day is exactly the same as the next. But if you're being consistent, if you're being quote unquote boring, you're going to get results long term because of that fact. And the education, the learning, the knowledge you're going to pick up from the back of that really, really is going to be superior to you moving forward to a sustainable approach. You don't have to have these intrinsically detailed plans, whether it's meal plans or training or whatever. Boring is okay. The simple fundamental things are okay. So when we talk nutrition in general, you don't have to have a 50 recipe meal, or multiple options every single day to choose from, because remember, we're human beings and we often can't decide under pressure. We often can't plan ahead sometimes. So to make a decision, there needs to be less options. And when there's less options, we can make a decision easier. Therefore, the stress is off us, the pressure's off us, and we can actually succinctly move forward with a simple decision. There's no stress, and the boringness, if that is in fact a word, comes to the front, and we can obviously have some success off the back of that. But that raises an interesting point just before. Training plans are exactly the same. And I've had this question asked of me of, well, 4 weeks in, I'm starting to get bored of this training plan. But that's okay. The more you stick to the training plan, the better you're going to get at it. Your body adapts. It evolves to the same movements over and over and over again. So you will naturally get stronger. Let's use real world as an example in this situation. Anyone who has a physically demanding job. So let's use like a carpenter, for example. When a carpenter first starts out in their apprenticeship, they pull up sore most days. They've got, blisters on their hands, their back hurts, their legs hurt because they're lifting, they're moving, they're doing all these things. Fast forward 1 year, they've adapted to that lifestyle. They've adapted to that load, that heavy burden of moving stuff, and their body's adapted and gone, okay, this is the norm, so this is what we need to do to adapt. I remember when I backpacked it was 6 months through Central America, USA, and then Canada. My backpack was on the threshold of the weight limit, which I think back then was around 25, 30 kilo. And I had to walk multiple places all the time with it on my back. And when I first started out, it was heavy. It was ridiculously heavy. It was hard to put on my back. I had to get it on a table and then sort of get into it. By the end, or even halfway through, I was swinging it over my shoulder, no problem. And again, it's because I'd adapted. Experience the difference with Matt Glynn at Code Property Group. With a 20-year reputation of a clean business, Matt is your guy when it comes to all things real estate. Make sure you give him a call now on 0404 315 066. I'd adapted to the load. I'd adapted and gotten used to it. And this is the same thing with training programs. Don't expect there to be a change every 2, 3, 4 weeks. It's ridiculous. Science and research has shown that the longer you do something, the better you get at it. And when you're doing a movement and you want to perfect that movement and you want to get stronger in that movement, you should stick to it as long as you possibly can. You know, 12 weeks, 16 weeks is ideal, but most people don't have the patience to stick to something for that long. They get bored. We get bored as a society. And again, I go back to my original point and I blame social media. But if you are an advanced lifter or someone who has been around training for a long time, you'll understand that the more you do a movement, the better the result is going to be. The stronger you get in that movement, the more confidence you develop in that movement. So, for me personally, I sort of aim around that 8-week mark. I think that's a good number. It's effectively 2 months. It gives us an opportunity to rotate the exercises through quite effectively. And the individual should, by week 8, with a deload built in, have some real success in terms of lifting capabilities, load, strength, adaptation, etc. So, it's okay to be boring. Boring is nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to, question. It's actually a really successful strategy that more and more people should employ. You don't have to have these outlandish processes. Think of your home life. If you're a parent, you try and keep things as simple as you can in the home. When you're preparing meals for the family, you keep it simple. You try and make meals that are easy to prepare because you're short on time, right? Well, in the grand scheme of things, that's boring. But it works. And if it works, why change it? Yeah?
Are you looking to shed a few kilos, change your composition, improve your relationship with food, increase your strength, or simply just have a better accountability level? Then maybe coaching is for you. I now offer online coaching in a number of capacities, from week to week, fortnightly, monthly, and of course nutrition only coaching. So if you are interested or want to know more, simply jump on paulsbodyengineering.com or simply send me a DM.
So it's very much an approach that we tend to overlook because there seems to be a need to follow the trends. There seems to be a need to have a knee-jerk reaction and make a change. Oh, it's not working after a week. I didn't lose any weight. Well, I better make a change. I need to drop this. I need to remove this. I need to change this. Well, no, you just need to give it more time. You need to go back to being consistent. Let's look at your week. Let's break down your week and identify where there are simple improvements that you have control over. Okay, you have control over the time you go to bed. You have control over how much water you drink. You have control over how many days a week you train and how hard you train. You have control over the accuracy and adherence of your nutrition. You have control somewhat over the levels of stress that you adhere to. So these factors need to be considered on a weekly basis, if not daily basis, and repeat over and over and over again. And I go back to my original point. It's okay to be boring. Boring. If you can take a boring approach into your health and fitness journey, if you're starting out or if you need to change, I guarantee you're going to find success. You really will. Okay, stick to the same plan over and over and over again. Not only will your body and your mind adapt and there'll be less stress from that, you will also find that you will get stronger. You will develop more and more confidence. And, if you did, let's use training as an example. If you started out week 1 with an RDL, I'm just going to use round numbers here, and you're moving, say, 40 kilos with confidence, feels good. By week 8, week 12, there's no reason why you can't have doubled that. If not, gone even harder. Simply through repetition, simply through doing the same movement over and over and over again. If your program is programmed correctly, whereby you're also doing ancillary movements and other movements that support that big movement, you should be getting stronger. You should absolutely be getting stronger. So you get to week 8 or week 12 at the end of a program and you look at it and go, let's look back, let's do an audit, let's see where my strength improvements have been developed. And you should be going, give yourself a pat on the back, because how good's this? All right, I'm ready to tackle the next thing. And you know what? Like, a smart coach will actually have similar movements in every program they write. Even if it is, like for me, 8 weeks, the next 8 weeks will have a similar movement. There's always a squat-based movement. There's always a hinge-based movement. There's always a thrust-based movement. There's always a press-based movement. So these are there. They just are shifted differently in terms of the name, in terms of position, but they're still there because they are fundamentals that we need to do on a week-to-week basis, not necessarily just for weight loss and strength development, but for longevity, for life, for quality of life, for movement, mobility. If you can do a proper hinge in your 90s and pick something up off the ground with weight and not throw out your back, my God, you've done well. Fantastic, because I guarantee you at the moment, the majority of the population in that age bracket or even younger wouldn't be able to do that. You know, my parents, God bless them, I went camping with them on the weekend. They wouldn't be able to do it, unfortunately, just because they had no knowledge around strength training when they were younger. It wasn't a thing. And now, unfortunately, their strength and mobility, and they've got a lot of limitations in terms of the way they move. But if you put this into practice now and be boring about it and hit repeat over and over and over again, you're going to get stronger and better at a singular movement. If you did an RDL, a Romanian deadlift, a traditional Romanian deadlift, once a week for the rest of your life, imagine how good that movement would be in 12 months, 2 years, 5 years from now. Yes, you would be boring. Yes, you would probably be bored with it. You'd look at the program, oh, God, here we go. We've got to do this again. But the significance of repeating it over and over and over again, you know, your nervous system, neurologically, physiologically, your body would be so good at that particular movement. You would be highly confident in shifting some serious weight because you've done it over and over again, because you've been boring. And nutrition is exactly the same. You know, a lot of people will ask me for a meal plan. I'll write up the meal plan and they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, can we change this? Can I change this? Can I change this? I will adapt a meal plan and, manipulate one to suit an individual's lifestyle. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, there needs to be an element of boringness to it, simply because you've got to take into consideration the time it takes to prepare, the time it takes to shop, the time it takes to do a cook up in advance, you know, and people also have families. So they need to have something that can be sort of manipulated to suit more people than just themselves. So simple is good. Meat and 3 veg. Why have we gone away from that? Like, that is a typical Australian dinner, but we've gone away from it because we now rely heavily on more complicated meals, packet meals, you know, things that may not necessarily be as healthy or as prudent to our requirements. But meat and 3 veg is so simple. You know, potato, broccoli, and carrot, and a piece of steak. Boom, done. How good? Like, that's so simple and so effective. Yes, obviously we've got to take into consideration your macronutrient requirements and things like that, but it's such a simple dish. And I guarantee you can probably get it knocked over in half an hour. You know, roast chicken or grilled chicken and veg, 3 veg. These things are something that we tend to overlook. We tend to overlook the simplicity or the simplistic nature of an approach to look for something more complicated because it is boring. Let's revert that thinking. Let's go back to the boring side of things and really implement a simple approach, a boring approach, a consistent approach, and I guarantee without fail you will have success on that. I guarantee it. So I think I'll finish there. I think that my message is very clear. Boring is good. It's okay to be boring. And I welcome anyone who listens to this to reach out and give me their ideas on what they believe boring is, and any success stories out there that you've had in relation to being boring. You know, you might eat the same thing. I've got clients who eat the same thing day in, day out, every single meal of the day. And many people from afar would look at that and go, God, that's boring. But they are also having amazing success on their journey in terms of weight loss, in terms of body recomposition, in terms of feeling happy and healthy and energetic in life. And if you question it, that question could be coming from a place of insecurity, thinking, well, maybe I should be doing it, but I don't know if I want to be boring. So you've got to weigh up the pros and cons of a decision and go with what you believe. But at the same time, sometimes we may have to make sacrifices in order to succeed. So thank you once again for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this, if you enjoyed this podcast, please screenshot it and share it across your stories. Tag myself at Paul's Body Engineering. If you're interested in any of my coaching services, please jump on paulsbodyengineering.com, or alternatively head to the link in my bio on my Instagram page, or even just send me a message, send me a DM, send me an email, and I'll be happy to chat. I do free consults, whether it's face-to-face or online. But outside of that, as I say to every client, every single day, have a great day.